Today's guest is Dr. Subrata Banerjea, Principal of the Allan College of Homeopathy in Essex, England. Dr. Subrata has also authored several books, including Miasmatic Prescribing, Classical Homeopathy for an Impatient World, Authentic Cures with Medical Reports Before and After Treatment, Synoptic Memorizer of Meteria Medica, Volume 1 and 2. Dr. Subrata is the fourth generation of a distinguished and widely respected homeopathic family, and we've also had the privilege to have his son, Dr. Subrata Banerjea, on the podcast on episode 91. Dr. Subrata graduated in homeopathy from the University of Calcutta with a record number of honours passes in 9 medical subjects and with 5 gold medals to his name, setting himself on a path to become an internationally acclaimed homeopathic clinician, lecturer, and author. He is now acknowledged to be the world's leading authority on miasmatic prescribing, and his particular gift is to combine practical homeopathy with profound intuition and the experience of 4 generations of homeopathic prescribers. You'll often find him quoting ancestral tips from his grandfather's personal clinical journals. His living Meteria Medica imitations for comparison of remedies are rare treats to watch and hear. Dr. Banerjea is a popular, widely travelled lecturer and has lectured almost everywhere in the world where homeopathy is known. Despite his hectic schedule, he also, together with his brother and wife, play an active role in the Kamala Banerjea Fund, a charity which distributes milk and medicines to the poor children of Calcutta. Students of Dr. Banerjea will testify to the remarkable knowledge and enthusiasm which he generously imparts to all who share his passion for this most beautiful healing art. To find out more, visit homeopathy-course.com or www.allancollege.co.uk. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangout. Today, we have the immense privilege of speaking with Dr. Subrata Banerjea. I hope I've said that right.
You did.
Oh, yay. If I end up reverting back to Subrata, you'll have to excuse me. But Subrata is actually really beautiful. What does it mean?
Subrata means Shu in Sanskrit and in Bengali means good. And Broto stands for who does good work. Oh. So my mom and dad, when kept my name, they thought at least I will do some good for the community.
Well, anybody who sees your last name, and I mean, who in the homeopathy world doesn't know you anyway, but for those who don't, can you tell us how you were first introduced to homeopathy? And I'm personally really looking forward to hearing this story.
Well, it's a very, very long tradition. I mean, I was born and brought up in a homeopathic family. It starts from my great-great-grandfather. He was a homeopath, and that I'm talking about 160 years back.
Wow.
So he was a homeopath. And in those days, back in India, in Calcutta, homeopathy was mainly practiced by few Western homeopaths and some Indian homeopaths or Bengali homeopaths. Perhaps you have heard the name of Mahendra Lal Sirkar. He was the first conventional MD doctor who converted to homeopathy and started practicing homeopathy. And he was the physician of, if you heard the name or you can Google it, it's Ramakrishna. He was a physician to Ramakrishna. And Ramakrishna mission right now is all over the world. Every more or less big metropolis all over the world have Ramakrishna mission. Like we have it in London, we have it in Manchester, things like that. So going back to my heritage, my great-great-grandfather passed his wisdom, his heritage to my granddad, who is Dr. Kishori Mohan Banerjea. And he had the privilege to learn homeopathy by sitting at the lotus feet of Dr. John Henry Allen back in the United States. He learned miasm from John Henry Allen and brought that wisdom back to India. So John Henry Allen gave us the 4th miasm, the tubercular miasm. And since then, the miasmatic approach of prescribing is in our blood because he learned it directly from John Henry Allen. And there is a story with it. He actually went with his friend in those days to going to America. You need courage as well. So he went with his friend, Dr. N.M. Chowdhury. There's a fantastic Meteria Medica. If you don't have it, I strongly recommend it. N.M. Chowdhury's Meteria Medica. And they went together and N.M. Chaudhary went, studied a little bit with Allan, but he also studied a little bit with Kent, brought that wisdom back. They started a college in Calcutta by the name of Bengal Allan. Allan is John Henry Allan. So my granddad wanted to pay respect to his guru, John Henry Allan. So Bengal Allan Homeopathic College, that started around 1920s. So that's a starting point of that. And he passed his wisdom to his son, my uncle, Nabokumar Banerjea. This all, the heritage is also in our website, which is allancollege.co.uk. So he brought that wisdom back and started the college, passed the wisdom to his son, my uncle. My uncle practiced for a very long time, and I inherited that from my uncle. My dad is a medical doctor, microbiologist, but he also qualified in homeopathy, and he used to teach last 15 years of his life in a homeopathic college, but he used to teach pathology in a homeopathic college, but he was a qualified homeopathic physician as well. So this is a long heritage, and I was the first graduate in the entire India because Calcutta University started the homeopathic degree program, which is a 5-year course, full-time, 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, full-time. And I graduated in 1981 after 5 years of study, and you have to do dissection in the cadavers and things like that. Back in India, we are qualified to write a death certificate, so the homeopathic BHMS doctors, even at the present moment, they are counted at par with the medical doctors as well. And I passed my wisdom to the 5th generation, who is Saptoshi Banerjea. And, with Almighty's grace, he's doing very well. He's teaching all over the world and carrying on the flag of classical homeopathy, the old, I have to say, the heritage of the old American homeopathy. The foundation of homeopathy, we like to keep it alive. We don't have any new system, any new methods. I do not have a Banerjea method, but I do have Hahnemannian and Kentian method alive. Thank you.
Oh, I feel like I need to give you a round of applause.
Thank you.
And it was lovely to have Saptoshi on the podcast as well on episode 91 of this show. And, I feel a little bit sorry for his beautiful daughter because there's been a lot of pressure on her to be the 6th generation, right? So Saptoshi is 5th generation. So the pressure is on for her. Oh, my goodness. And I just have to ask you, what was it like for you growing up in a household or in a family with such a strong tradition of homeopathy? I mean, you didn't really have a choice, right? You would have had to go into homeopathy.
To a certain extent, to be honest with you, there was not direct pressure, I have to say, because in those days, perhaps India has lots of old tradition in those days. It is little less now, but I don't know whether that is good or bad. When I say old tradition, because we were a joint family. My dad, my uncle, all used to live in one roof. So we were all together, we had about 15 family members together, which is great, to enjoy life, to be honest with you, rather than these nuclear families these days. Anyway, so instead of A for apple, I learned A for Indica and B for belladonna. It was almost like that. And I used to see uncle had a very busy practice. Sometimes he used to take me down and I used to have a chair in the corner of his clinic room and, things like that. It's just amazing. And similarly, Saptoshi brought up like that as well. So at one point, I have to bring him in as well, because at one point I said to him when he finished his A-level or class 12, he did very well. And I said, you did well. Do you like to do medicine, general medicine, be a medical doctor and do homeopathy later on if you want? He said, since childhood, when I learned for fever, you give belladonna or ferramphos, I do not like to give paracetamol. So he went straight to BHMS, but, he had the scope of doing the regular medicine and then do homeopathy as a postgraduate or whatever, being converted to it. Over to you.
Oh, beautiful. Actually, and he did say that Chaudhary was one of his favorite Meteria Medicas as well. And he also said he learned A for arnica and B for belladonna and C for chamomile.
Very cool. Yeah.
Oh, and I think
we are the longest serving homeopathic family in the world at the present. I think so, because 5 generations is quite pretty long, uninterrupted 5 generations,
Yeah, I think you should be in the Guinness Book of World Records, actually. We need to get you in there. Even if it's just to make people ask, what's homeopathy? We should really look into that.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Allan School of Homeopathy as well? So when did that start and how did that come about?
That's a short story about that. The story is, obviously, I graduated. I started practicing in Calcutta. And Calcutta is known as Mecca in homeopathy. So I started practicing in Calcutta and everything was going well. And then I thought of spreading the classical homeopathy. And when I say classical homeopathy, the homeopathy dependent on Meteria Medica, the homeopathy what Kent practiced, the original homeopathy. So what I decided that I'd like to go abroad and try, of spreading this. So I came to the West. I traveled quite a bit, in my first trip and started talking about homeopathy in England and in US. And in England, we met a group, like a homeopathic group, and I invited them to come to Calcutta. So we started a small 2-3 weeks course in Calcutta. And Western homeopaths started coming to Calcutta. And I named that again to revive Bengal Allan. I named that Bengal Allan Medical Institute. And then I met my wife, Janet. And I'd like to just quickly introduce Janet. She has clinic today, but she will just say hello to the listeners.
Oh, amazing. Hello, Janet.
Hello.
It's such a treat to get to meet you as well. Hello.
Okay, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. And thank you for popping in to come and say hi.
Thank you. And so we decided to start a college in the UK. And what will be the best name other than bringing that my granddad's guru, Allan? So we started Allan College of Homeopathy. And it's quite long, we started actually in 1998. So it is 25 years. And it's going strong. We run undergraduate course, postgraduate course. In the West, to run homeopathic college or to have a homeopathic practice is difficult. But we did it, and we are very strong and carrying on as a team, me and Janet. Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. And actually, I've looked at the photos on your website of all the years that you go to Calcutta and you have this 2-week program that you have there. And I think it was in March this year you had another one because I interviewed, was it January? January, that's right. Because we run
every year in January. It's a 2-week program. We generally show in 2 weeks 160 cases guaranteed. Live cases. It's not paper case. So 160 live cases. It's an extensive experience of how homeopathy works, basically. Because when the patient is in front of you, there is no lie. There is no deviation of the fact. Patient is here, they are telling, and obviously simultaneously it is always translated, but many patients, 50% of the patient speaks English. So you can ask any question and they will say heavy pathology, how homeopathy cures it. And they believe in it. So it's every January, every year, in 2024 also, there'll be a program for 2 weeks with 160 live cases. Only in 2020 and 2021, we couldn't do it. Allow me to use a bad language, for the blinking COVID. Thank you.
That wasn't even bad. Now, something I really admire are lecturers who practice what they preach. And you can go to a college and the lecturer can tell you this remedy is good for this and that, but they might not necessarily have a busy practice themselves. And so that's why I admire people like you who have really busy practices in the UK and in India, and you still lecture as well. So when people are learning from somebody like you, they're actually getting real life knowledge, not just book knowledge, real life knowledge. So that's something I really admire. But something I'd love to pick your brains on is the difference between the East and the West. So you say you go to Calcutta like 3 times a year. And I mean, it's very different there from the little bit that Saptoshi has mentioned, very different there in the West. Tell us a little bit about that, what that's like.
Well, I live in the UK for the last almost 28 years now, but I regularly go to Calcutta. There are 3 reasons of going to Calcutta. Obviously, one of the first one is Saptoshi and the family, and now I have a granddaughter. But the second important thing is I like the challenge because over there, many patient comes and say, if I die, I like to die in your hand. Meaning, say the patient having a cancer and they don't like to do any conventional medicine. Don't think that they are poor. They have money, no problem, but they believe in homeopathy. So it's a challenge. I don't get that in the West. And the third interesting thing is rapid prescribing. We run slum clinics in Calcutta, which is free charitable clinics. And in the slum, for a new patient, maximum 5 to 8 minutes. For follow-ups, 3 minutes. And I generally see, Shoptoshi does that as well, at least 60 patients in 3-4 hours. That's in the slum clinic. And I like that challenge. And these patients are returning. My uncle always used to say, when a patient is returning, and though he is saying, I'm not better, but you have to remember that they are better. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come. They are a little bit better, definitely. That's, a professional tip there. So when I land in Calcutta, I have to put my India mode on because it's different. I have had a woman coming and talking that I'm not getting my menstruation, and later the husband says, oh, well, she had the hysterectomy, which the woman doesn't know. It can go that extreme, especially in the rural areas when we have rural clinics, because the rural areas are still developing and it's not, everybody is educated, that type of aspect you get. Whereas in the metropolis, as I said, I come from Calcutta, where there are people who have vast discrepancy in wealth. So if you write a blood test, they will fly to Singapore and get it done. So, that type of wealth is there. But all of them, there is a common single thing, a large majority of them believe in homeopathy. And one of the main reasons is Mahatma Gandhi believed in homeopathy, the father of the nation. Rabindranath Tagore, if you Google that, Tagore, and he was the Nobel laureate. And he was a strong supporter of homeopathy. And one of the spiritual lead religious person, Ramakrishna, he was only treated by homeopathy because we believe that he was the direct incarnation of God, incarnation of Krishna, who is one of the main deity we have in Hinduism. So homeopathy is almost engrafted. And there are two types of practice. In the slum clinics, fast prescribing. Whereas in my consulting room, Shoptoshi and I practice classical homeopathy. And I will come to that classical homeopathy. Perhaps you lead me on that, what I mean by that. Whereas in the UK, I give 1 hour for a new patient and I schedule half an hour for a follow-up. To be honest with you, many times, even for a new patient, I'm done in 10 minutes. But over here, they look at the watch and make sure that they are getting the value of the time, So I had to put in my website, if you go to the website under the consultation of Subrata Banerjea, it will say you are not paying for your time, but you are paying for your expertise, for my expertise. Because otherwise, I do not like to sit down and just listen if I'm done in 10, 15 minutes, And with Almighty's grace, I have a very busy practice here in the UK. And because one of the aspects of this is I go to the very basic of homeopathy and I feel I do what I preach and I teach what I do. So in the college also, single medicine, wait and watch, even in this drug-dependent world. Thank you.
That is very interesting. Do you think that maybe it's part of the psychology between the East and the West? Because I'm just thinking something I definitely find is for some of my clients that spending that hour and a half or that hour with them, that for them is almost more therapeutic than the medicine. But is it because maybe in India, meditation and things like that is already part of their self-care, it's ingrained in them. So maybe they're already doing that and getting some sort of healing in that part. So they're really just coming to you for the medicine. Whereas over here, I would say 80% of what I do is actually just listen. And that is incredibly therapeutic, more so than the medicine. Why do you think that is?
Can I invite my wife to say
course.
a little bit about this?
Yes, Janet, come join us.
The only one thing I'd like to introduce, saying that my medicine will talk.
Okay.
We realize the value of the listen. We really value the listening skills of the homeopath. That same person might be talking to a friend. That same person might be talking to a family member. That same person might be meditating, praying. But the therapy of the medicine cannot be doubted. In India, I think a lot of people do have a faith, whatever it might be. But the faith alone is not curative. The faith is supportive, and the medicine will be curative. I don't really have much else to say. My confidence also is in the medicine. We have to have a willing patient, a participating patient. And my experience of watching Indian patients is they're very participatory. They wait for hours. They queue in the heat. They sometimes get impatient. Sometimes they don't. So their confidence in their prescription is already there. And they don't expect to be heard or listened to or therapized. They rely on the medicine, and perhaps their faith is slightly separate. I think it's a bit of an illusion that everybody meditates in India, because I think with the hurry and flurry of life, the professionals, I don't think there's much time in the day. Some of the IT people, they work 18 hours a day, you know. They might have a passing cursory glance to the puja room, but there's not a lengthy praying experience in many people's lives.
Thank you. I'd like to say one story. Yes. I'm a man full of stories. I was sitting in with my uncle in the consulting room. My uncle was prescribing, and I was helping him, sitting in. There was a patient in the waiting room, and he was coughing. And my uncle just said, shh, 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 just listen to the cough. I said, okay. Very loud cough, explosive type of cough. Then he asked me, can you go and check that during coughing, does he get any discomfort in any part of the body? I said, why you are asking me to do this? Because you'll be seeing this patient, you can ask yourself. Why have to go outside and ask when he's waiting in the waiting room? He said, no, I insist. Go, please ask. So I went and I said, Senior Dr. Banerjea, asking that during cough, do you have any problem? He said, I have excruciating pain in my thigh, especially when I cough in my thigh. I went in and said to my uncle that he's saying that. He just wrote the medicine and said, give him the medicine prescription. He gave the medicine and said, ask the patient to go, dispense the medicine, ask the patient to go, come back after 6 weeks. I said, what you are doing? You have not seen the patient. He traveled 100 miles to see you. He said, just do it. What I'm saying. As you said, he prescribed capsicum. We dispensed one single dose of capsicum. The patient was suffering with this for 18 months, one single dose. And he came back 6 weeks' time. And to my utter surprise, you believe me, Ginny, my utter surprise, the cough was 80% better. So it's the medicine that talks. For talking to the patient, you are a homeopath. You are not a psychotherapist. You are not a counselor. I say to my students that you have to have a sound knowledge in your Meteria Medica, understanding in your Meteria Medica. And that's what is very, very important. And with the confidence you practice. You asked me a question, which I like to clarify. You asked me about the East and the West, the practice difference. I think it's a very interesting question. When we started the college, we gave emphasis that the students must know their limitations. There are colleges in the UK who doesn't even teach A&P, anatomy and physiology. I said we will close the college. Janet was very supportive. We will close the college if the patient do not know to diagnose. So we introduced in our curriculum at least 20-25% of medical diagnosis and medical, which is being lectured here in our college by medical doctors. So they teach A&P, they teach the pathology. So what I'm getting is a student must understand, or a homeopath must understand, this is my limitation. After that, I can't do. But inside the limitation, you have a world. You can do a lot, right? So that's number one. Number two, we have been asked by many organization bodies here in the UK that you should invite or introduce many different approaches. I won't go on that. All my viewers, you know what I'm talking about, all the new methods and all that. And I said, no, I didn't learn my homeopathy like that. I learned my homeopathy, the only one single approach, which is the Hahnemannian Kentian approach, which I practiced already for a long time, 25 years back in India. And I will introduce that homeopathy here. So I will just give you another story here. As I said, I'm a man of stories. One day I received a phone call from a patient in the US. My secretary picked up the phone and said, he's a homeopath from US and he wants a repertory session consultation with you. So my secretary didn't understand, so he passed the phone to me. What is a repertory session? So he said, can I book a repertory session consultation with you? I said, what do you exactly mean? He said, because over here, I have been to many, if you like, movers and shakers of homeopathy, big homeopaths here, and they all spend time and go in the computer and look in the repertory. And I, being a homeopath, I understand the searching of the rubrics and all that. I said, look, I don't use repertory. If I see 50 patients, I might open the repertory once or twice. You can ask me a question about the repertory and approach. But I don't use repertory. I practice from my understanding of Meteria Medica, the theme of the medicines. He said, do you? I said, yes. And then that actually led me to make an intensive research that why homeopathy has changed so much in the West, that everybody looking at the repertory to practice homeopathy. What masters did in those days. So I researched, especially I picked up Kent because Kent has a repertory as well. He's the best person to pick up. I did research and I sent you an article. Did Kent use repertory? And to my utter surprise, and I've given lots of reference where from I got those information. So, my viewers, you can go back to those literature and see. Kent used to see 50, 60 people a day. And in those days, there was no computer. And he couldn't repertorize 50 cases. But he had the herring guiding symptoms in his head. He has the Meteria Medica in his head. So he could dream the remedy. He could visualize the medicine and practice. So I think that is the biggest difference, especially the Calcutta approach of homeopathy. Because many of my teachers, direct students of American stalwart homeopaths. We have had B.K. Sarkar. B.K. Sarkar was a direct student of Kent. I have seen him. My granddad studied with John Henry Allen. So I think that wisdom they brought back to Calcutta. And the approach is understanding Meteria Medica and prescribe on the Meteria Medica. It's much difficult, I have to say. But my uncle used to say, if you know 50, 60 polycrests, but like a mother knows her baby, you'll be a good homeopath. So the dependence on repertory in the West is a shortcut approach, I have to say. But my Allan College undergraduates and postgraduates, I introduced them the very foundation of homeopathy. And the foundation of homeopathy, I like to say Meteria Medica. So understanding Meteria Medica, especially the polycrest, you have to know them. And my approach of teaching Meteria Medica is through pictures. In our website, there are about 12 polycrests with their pictures. A, B, with small words, like say for instance, retention for nephron view. So retention, edema, retain the water. Retention, it holds the urine. Retention, it's constipated. Emotionally, retention, silent grief, holding grudges. So through one word, you can understand many symptoms. And I have published a book, Classical Homeopathy for Impatient World. And that's, gives that type of approach with small words. How can you understand the theme of the medicine? And Janet teaches organon and philosophy. And in the West, not many colleges go through each and every aphorism, but we do. Because we believe in single prescription. Even in this drug-dependent world, I believe you give a single medicine and wait and watch. And obviously, the patients are getting better. In the last Allan teaching clinic, we run the Allan teaching clinic because, once again, you said that exactly what I mentioned before. I do what I preach and I teach what I do. So in our busy Allan teaching clinic, last time in the last day, we saw 22 patients. And in the West, that's not easy to see 22 patients in the teaching clinic in London. So the combination of classical is the dependence on Meteria Medica, understanding of Meteria Medica, and dependence on organon. That's the foundation. Many times I say to my students, you might listen to many different approach and lectures, but you have your foundation. Allan College has taught you that. The foundation is organon and the original philosophies. And we say practical. And why I say practical, classical and practical? is our approach. The practical is, this is a drug-dependent world, especially the Western world. In my practice, 98%, 95% patients are on inhalers that are painkillers or statin, etc., etc. And what I do, I give a organopathic medicine. Say, for instance, the patient is having headaches, migraine for the last 4 or 5 years. And depends. So patient is on medication, allopathic medication. So his modalities are masked. If you ask how the headache is better, warm room, open air, pressure, etc., etc. Oh, I take painkillers. I don't know. So just on the basis of few available symptoms, I might start my prescription, say Melilotus, Onosmodium. These are small medicines mentioned in the body case. So they're there for 100 plus years. I will give them in low potency tincture and ask the patient to gradually wean off the conventional medication. So perhaps the patient was taking 3 tablets of painkillers a day. I will say not 2, but even 2.5. And try my Melilotus 3 times a day. And by the time I have noticed, you wean off 40% of the medication, more symptom comes to the surface, you go for a polycrest. So I'm preparing the patient for polycrest. And polycrest is the final answer, obviously. But I do not prescribe if I do not get a good totality of the polycrest. Thank you.
Well, I am really glad to hear you say that, because this is the thing with classical prescribing and finding that constitutional remedy is that's when they are on so many different medications. Like one of my clients has been on steroid medications between 5 and 10 milligrams daily for the past 30 years, combined with smoking marijuana for 30 years daily. So, I would have no idea what a true constitution is, because there is just so much layer on top of layer. And so it's nice to hear you say that you do this practical approach where you are giving an indicated remedy for that, but you're trying to wean them off that until you're seeing the picture underneath.
Exactly.
That's really nice to hear, because
I just gave an example for migraine, but that can be done in every case, including like osteoarthritis. The patient is on steroid or painkiller. I will prescribe lesser known, if you think of lesser known arthritic pain medicines. We have Rhamnus california, we have Calcutta. So I use quite extensively these small medicines and wean off. But then I will go for lycopodium, then I will go for brania. But I like to prepare the patient to receive the mighty power of my tiny globule when I prescribe a polycrest.
Amazing. Now, Subrata, do you have a specific way of learning Meteria Medica? So I know Sabturci is really good with his Meteria Medica as well. And he says if you take 50 polycrests and you learn one of them a week, then by the end of that year, you've got 50 of them that you've really honed in on. But do you have a particular way that you learn the Meteria Medica, or that you teach people to learn the main keynotes of it? Where do you start, or just tell us a little bit about that?
Thank you. I totally support what he says, one a week. And I said, if you know 50, 60 polycrests by heart, you'll be a good homeopath, I promise. Actually, this comes from N.M. Chaudhary. N.M. Chaudhary used to say, if you love your Meteria Medica, jewels will fall before you like the falls of Niagara. That was N.M. Chaudhary, But I love few books I'm going to mention. I love reading them. For a beginner or even a first-year student, I say start with Nash, because Nash's Leaders in Therapeutics. It's a good old book. It's a Jain. It's not very lengthy. You start with Nash, read Nash, gives a good picture. My second book is Margaret Tyler. Tyler's Drug Picture. She is an English homeopath, beautiful writing, direct student of Kent. And so go with Tyler, understand the theme of the medicine. My third book I would recommend is N.M. Chaudhary. I love N.M. Chaudhary. Chaudhary's Meteria Medica is really good. Jain published that. Jain Publishers of New Delhi. But obviously nobody can be homeopath without reading Kent. But if you start with Kent, Sulphur, he spends 20, 22 pages, even though you don't like it. So obviously these will give a basic picture, a portrait. And then this is my consulting room from where I'm speaking near London. And I always keep my boric at my side, and it says, proud to be a homeopath.
That's nice. Did you have that cover made?
Yeah. So boric is very, very clinically important. we have been taught in the way of Allan's keynote is your basic textbook. So we know our Allans. So Allan and Boric, our basic book. But I never recommend my students to start with them. That's the one way. And the second way is I learn by visualizing. So if you go to our website, see these 12 drug, I think it is under resources, these drug pictures, they are pictures, and you can understand the theme of the medicine. In that way, you can build up this theme. And the other thing is, I always say to my students, through patients, you learn Meteria Medica through patients. And that is one of the reasons our teaching clinic is so busy and the students really enjoy it. Also, our Calcutta clinical program where we demonstrate 160 live cases. And students enjoy, the participants enjoy. We get homeopaths from all over the world. We are running this for 35 years. And they learn a lot by visualizing live cases. And 160 cases, even some of the homeopaths will not see in a year over here, even more. So basically, I shared some of my favorite books. You might ask me a question, and I am answering that in advance about the modern Meteria Medica. I do like Portrait by Catherine Coulter. I do like Vermeulen. I do like Robin Murphy. But I believe you should have a foundation of classical writing first. Because many of these Meteria Medicas have their own interpretation. But if you know your original Meteria Medica, then reinforcement through the modern Meteria Medicas will be better. And that's how I understand my Meteria Medica. I love Meteria Medica. I dream Meteria Medica. I don't know very much repertory, but to a certain extent, I know a little bit of my Meteria Medica.
I'm just on your website here looking at your drug pictures. It is so good. And like Calcutta, it's got 51 pages here that you can go through, and such great visuals. And this picture presentation that you've got here, there's 51 slides for people to go through, and there's pictures here, and it's really, really good.
Thank you.
Wow. Who put that together for you?
I have a postgraduate student who organized the slides and the PowerPoints. So I write them and they put it together,
this is interesting. The square fingertips. Oh, wow. Look at that. Very cool. Oh my gosh. I'm going to have so much fun.
You're welcome. And one of the things is I always give reference where I found it. I do not like to impose that this is my technique or things like that. I'm a humble homeopath and still collecting pebbles in the show. It's so much to learn, but homeopathy is just beautiful. And there are ups and downs in homeopathy, but so long the sun will shine and the moon will splendor, homeopathy will survive because it's the truth, and truth cannot be suppressed.
That is so true. And we need to get that printed and put it up in our clinics to remind all of us, hey, because sometimes with the attacks, skeptic attacks all around the world, we need to be reminded that it is the truth and the truth will always prevail. And
especially
it's a
in the
natural...
West, Janet and I have had phone calls trying to catch us that can you cure diabetes and things like that. It's much more in the West. And people who have been treated by homeopathy and got the benefits, they will believe it to the last point. And allow me to say this COVID is a blessing for homeopathy. I tell you, my practice has, doubled since COVID, because there are so much of patients coming to us who have had bad effects from, different aspects. I don't like to mention everything, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And they are just fed up. And they can see the fallacy of the conventional medication. They can see the side effects of the medication, and, things like that keeps going on,
I have a question for you there. So, I'm treating a lot of side effects of the shots in my clinic. Would you still use a classical prescription there, or would you ever use like a remedy made from the substance itself? Or do you still stick to classical prescribing there?
This is a very good question. This take me to tautopathy, which is the medicine prepared from allopathic medication or vaccination. When tautopathy first came in homeopathy, Dr. R.P. Patel started, I think it was 60s or early mid 70s.
Okay.
Many homeopaths thought we have the final answer. But we have seen lots of failures by using homeopathic medicine as well. So I believe and I teach that if you find there is a direct correlation, that definitely after that, say for instance, after that medication, many times I see that after anticonvulsive drugs, a patient starting becoming better, like Tegretol and stuff like that, anticonvulsive drugs. You can potentize that. We have a pharmacy in the UK who you can send any medicine, conventional medicine, they can potentize it. But also the vaccination, I don't like to go into that debate of MMR and autism, but that when we were students in 80s, late 70s, 80s, I hardly see a case of autism. And now in India, in the West, autism is one of our, most commonly seen patients. So vaccination has something to do with it. That's a, controversial topic. I'm not saying yes or no, but we homeopaths know, and sometimes we give potentized medicine. So with the COVID, yes, if the patient says, since I have taken that jab, I have having severe headache, migraine, etc., I might switch into a jab. Like in this country, you can give AstraZeneca potentized, Pfizer potentized vaccine. But if I find there's a good totality of lycopodium, I might start with lycopodium, and if there is a standstill status, I call it a block. Like you are running in this country, we call M roads, which are the highways. You are running 70 miles an hour, and then suddenly there is a standstill status. All the traffic, all the cars stop. So there must be a block. You remove the block and you start running 70 miles an hour again. So what I mean, you are running with lycopodium. Lycopodium has improved 40, 50, 60%. Then there is suddenly a standstill status. You might have to find the cause, and that cause could be miasmatic cause. That cause could be an etiological cause, which could be emotional, physical, or that cause could be an iatrogenic cause, drugs, vaccination. You remove that, go back to your polycrest and finish the case. I hope I have answered your question.
You have, and it's really nice to know that obviously you're always going for that simillimum, but you're also using, taking it case by case and using what's in front of you. I just cannot help to just try and imagine what it must be like to be you, where you can go to India and you are accepted and revered and you can say whatever you want and treat any condition. And then you go to the UK and you have to count every word you say. And people half the time don't even know what you do. And people are trying to trip you up. They're trying to catch you. They're trying to drag your names through the mud. I mean, what's it like to be in your head? I mean, that must be so weird for you.
It's very, very difficult, I have to say. Even, sometimes like in a gathering, you say what you do, and you say, I'm a homeopath. Or is it reflexology? Or is it aromatherapy? I mean, it's just so degrading. Whereas especially in Calcutta, but everywhere more or less in India, if you throw a stone, it will hit a homeopath. Like everybody more or less knows about homeopathy and things like that. It's very, very difficult. But we are carrying on with our passion. I have a good support from my wife, and that makes me carry on. And the other thing is, important thing is when you get compliment from your patient. And if the patient says, I'm just so much better, that's your best compliment. You forget everything, And to be honest with you, as I said, the large number of patients do say that I'm feeling better, but obviously we never have 100% rate of success. I always say if we have 70, 75% improvement in cases, you're doing really good.
Absolutely. Can I ask, with your 2-year program, it's international, right? It's done online. Do you have a particular intake every year, or can people join whenever they want?
It's a postgraduate program. Once again, total dependence on Meteria Medica. I bring small medicines, as much as I can. And it's named therapeutically so that I can bring these small medicines. Say, when we are talking about migraine, I'll be talking about, obviously, I always say the polycrest is the final answer. So don't misunderstand me. But this is a drug-dependent one. And the patient is on drugs. And many times our failures are that we cannot see the totality. In my opinion and experience, Eugenie, aphorism 91 of Hanuman's organon is a very, very important reference, where Hanuman says you should prescribe on the natural picture of the disease. He actually says uncontaminated picture. I'm quoting Organon Dudgeon's translation. Uncontaminated picture. So he says if a patient is on medication, I'm talking about 91. If the patient is on medication, don't give any medicine, give sackcloth. In the present world, especially in the UK, you can't do that. One, that's not ethical, just to give sackcloth on the first visit. B, if the patient have an aggravation, patient might die and you will be sued in the West. So Hanuman saying, stop it. With all due respect to my guru, Hanuman, you can't do the number one. You cannot stop the medication and give sackcloth. Hanuman says, ask what are the symptoms before the starting of the medication. Sometimes the patient is suffering for 5 years. They don't know how his headache was better 5 years back, whether it was pressure makes him better or cold application makes him better. So that's not possible. But Hanuman did emphasize uncontaminated picture. So I picked up from that 91. So what I do, I try to get some symptoms. Say a patient is talking congestive headache. He takes 3 painkillers a day, but it's a congestive. He says it throbs here. It's congestive. My eyes get blurred. Few other symptoms. It's going towards belladonna, going towards guanine, but I won't give belladonna or guanine to start because I don't have the modalities. I ask the patient the modalities. The patient says, I don't know, because I take the painkiller. I don't let it build up. So I might start with Melilotus in tincture or 6C and ask the patient, put that in a glass of water and sip it. And when it is your time to take the painkiller, try to defer it by 1 hour, 2 hours. So by that, you are taking the painkiller every 8 hours. You are deferring it to 9 hours, 10 hours. So you're weaning off 15, 20% of the medication. And in my long experience, I have found that by the time you wean off 40% of the medication, patient will start giving you modalities. Patient will start giving you the actual totality and you go for the podcast. So that's the approach, what the patient likes. Because in this country, patients are almost under total control of the GPs in the NHS, National Health Service. And patient don't get much choice from the GP. You got to take this medication and that's it. But in that way, if the patient wants, obviously it's the patient's choice. If the patient wants, they can wean off the medication 5%, 10%, 15% and can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's very important. Patient thinks I'm getting back control of my life. And patient gets excited. And that's one of the best approach of practicing homeopathy in the West. Because you are helping the patient to gradually wean off the chemicals and making the body free. And that's important.
It really is. Did you answer that question or did I just forget? With your postgraduate 2-year program, can somebody enroll any time of the year or do you have a particular enrollment date?
Thank you. It's a modular program. So when I say modular, like one module of neurology, 2 days, one module of pediatrics, one module of miasmatic prescribing. So they can enroll at any point. Say the next module, I think dermatology coming up in November. So if they enroll in November with the session 9 and go 2 years, finish with session 8. So all the sessions are done. And in this 2-year program, each day we at least discuss 50, 60 medicines, lesser knowns, big polycrest, and real extensive exposure to Meteria, clinical and comparative Meteria. I believe in comparative Meteria, how quickly you can differentiate between Brania, Rastus, Phytolacca, Calcutta flow, things like that. These are the finer points of differentiation. And that's what I teach in the postgraduate program.
That's exciting. And is it all pre-recorded? Is it all live? And can people join from all around the world?
This is live. So actually when I'm teaching in the UK, it's transmitted live so that you can stop me, ask questions, clarify your doubts, etc. And I expect 80% attendance. I do have actually students from Australia and it's there. They almost starts at 2:00 in the morning, something like that, and go, like that. In America, they start quite early morning as well. So what I mean is I expect 80% attendance, but all the postgraduate sessions are recorded and kept in the WebEx website, and they can have unlimited viewing for 3-4 weeks. They can view anytime as much as they want.
Amazing. Now, I have one special personal request for you and for Saptarshi together. Now, coughs are my nemesis. They are so hard to prescribe. Now, I've got my basics down. I can recognize, a Spongia and a Drosera and a Hepasulf and phosphorus often, and a Rumex definitely. There's a few that I can recognize, mostly thanks to Saptarshi's YouTube video. But between you and Saptarshi, can you two please get together and do as many different cough sounds as you possibly can? Because that YouTube video of his has been a lifesaver to me so often. And just yesterday, one of my staff members, her daughter has a cough and she was listening to Saptarshi's YouTube video and came up on coccus cacti because of that cough. But between the two of you, I know Saptarshi says that one of your ancestors said, don't repertorize the cough, you just listen and prescribe. But you two have so much knowledge for that, and we really need you to get that knowledge down onto some videos for the rest of us to learn, because like I said, coughs are my nemesis, and anything that you can do to help me with those will be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. And cough is an area where you can just listen.
Yeah. And once you hear it, like once I've heard a Rumex cough or hyoscyamus, I can easily prescribe, because that's such, that machine gun, you can hear that. And Hepasulf I can hear, and Spongia, when you know what to listen for, it is actually really easy to prescribe. But there are so many different coughs, and really that YouTube video of his made a huge difference. So between the two of you, if you can please do more coughs, that would be really appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Is there
we'll keep in mind.
Yes, please. Is there any final message that you want to leave our listeners with? And can you please just tell them your websites as well, where people can purchase your books, where they can enroll in all your courses? I mean, you've got so much information.
My friend, Hahnemann has not lived in vain. And I always believe, as you know, a chemist who taught chemist, a philologist who knew so many different languages. I'm talking about Master Hahnemann. A physician whom physicians feared. We are proud that such an enormous personality is the founder of our homeopathy. So carry on this torch of homeopathy. And my friends, many people outside the homeopathic world do criticize us. But there are so many Nobel laureates who supported homeopathy, and they are not idiots. There are, royal family in this country supports homeopathy very strongly. And there's a link in our old website, homeopathy-course.com, where I have put many legends of homeopathy who supported homeopathy, like philosopher, Nobel laureates. Two great examples from my own country, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and Tagore. Tagore is a Nobel laureate. Mother Teresa is a Nobel laureate. And from this country, the best example is the royal family. Late Queen, our present King Charles, strong supporter. So carry on the flag. But I would request you to do it properly. And the properly is not Banerjea way, but Hahnemannian Kentian way. Learn your Meteria Medica. Practice accordingly, and you will see the beauty of this wonderful art and science, and that's important. And if you fail in a case, never think that homeopathy failed. It could be our failure. I am not successful in all cases, but if you know the limitations of homeopathy, within that limitation, homeopathy can do wonder. In my website, we have actually, the present website is the website we generally use, which is Allan College, ALLEN College, all one word, .co.uk. But also we have another website, homeopathy-course.com. And in our website, there are lots of information. I was talking about advanced pathology treated in India, especially because they allow us to put that on the website. I have brain tumor cured by homeopathy and things like that, with all medical reports before and after treatment. I published a book published by Jain in India. Jain publishes Authentic Cures in Homeopathy with medical reports before and after treatment. So, homeopathy is there for you. It's more and more the present world is becoming drug dependent and drug resistant, more and more you have the scope and you can do wonders. Follow the true spirit of homeopathy. That's my request. If you like to see what homeopathy can do, I can openly invite you to Calcutta in my 2 weeks program where Shaktoshi and myself lecture together. And it is more practical cases, 160 cases we demonstrate. And we will show you the wonder of homeopathy, the beauty of homeopathy. So please do carry on the flag. And I always say, long live Hanuman, long live homeopathy. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Subrata. It was such an honor to speak to you. And thank you so much for what you're doing for homeopathy. It's really such a privilege.
Thank you. Thank you.